Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. And you remember the movie Jaws? I remember that. Well, we have with us Dr. Mikki, who as a 7-year-old girl saw that movie and was scared, fear, just like most of us. But she turned that fear into curiosity, into her life's work and a passion. So we're going to dive into a journey, a story of how to turn fear into passion, but also how to make an impact on the world. You know, Dr. Mikki is the executive director of the Oceans First Institute. She now has, and that institute empowered over 170,000 people in 35 countries, 46 states, to really understand our oceans, understand sharks. You know, one thing I learned is we only have 5 shark attacks a year, and yet we have this fear of this creature. And we learn more about how you can recover and reboot yourself from these fears. Most of all, stick around towards the end. We get into passion, we get into purpose, and I now am going to be going on a dive, an exhibition dive with great white sharks and Dr. Mikki. So here we go. Enjoy this podcast. Glad to be here. All right, Mikki, I've been looking forward to this. This is going to be fun.
Yes, I'm excited. I am so excited, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be on today.
Yeah. Well, Mikki, you know, Dr. Mikki, because you have so many credentials, but I just want to say thank you for being here. We got so much to talk about, but the first thing I kind of want to know was, tell me how the movie Jaws affected you as a little girl.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a silly story, really, but it was the summer of 1975, and I was 7 years old, and went into the movie theater to see the movie Jaws with my big brother, and woof, I tell you what, that movie was unbelievable, and you know, it was really great because it was this movie about a killer shark and all these personalities. And I tell you, I walked out of there forever changed. I was absolutely terrified of sharks. And yeah, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to overcome it. I thought they were under my bed, under the kitchen table. I had a real shark problem. I really did. And the only way I knew to overcome it was to read about sharks. And luckily, my parents had this animal encyclopedia. And so I started to read all about sharks and literally realized that they're not the monsters that they were made out to be in the movies. And I fell in love with them. I absolutely was hooked for life.
See, that's what blows me away. And first off, for everybody, you know, Mikki and I have been at a number of events together in Colorado and Vail called The Garage. And I've heard you present, and I can't wait to have unpack some of the passion in your life, which is great white sharks. It's marine life. But here's what really blows me away. First off, I remember that movie too. And I remember that scene where, you know, you pull your feet up off the ground, right? It's like, oh my God, Jaws is coming up to get you. I swear, I thought it was going to happen in the movie theater right then and there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's terrifying because you didn't see it all the time. So your imagination went crazy. The music was off the charts. The music was it just had that vibe of terror. And, you know, you put all that together, and it was one heck of a great movie. It really was. It had every good thing in it to just make your imagination go wild. And, you know, it really captured, I think, a generation of people, and a lot of people didn't want to go swimming after that movie.
I know. It still freaks me out at night too. I mean, we're going to get into your scuba diving and what you've done with sharks, but it blows me away that you can take something that was so fearful, you know, to you, and you turn that fear into a passion. And that's what I kind of want to unpack. But back to the music. That music was awesome. I still think of it in my mind, you know,
Oh, yeah.
and the way it increased, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no. So tell me, give me the little bit, let's go on a journey now. So you saw the movie Jaws, we're all freaked out. You're climbing under your bed at night to make sure there's no sharks under there. And what happens?
Yeah. So, I kept reading about sharks. I kept learning about them. And, my path to become the person that I am today was definitely not a straight path. And so I ended up going into the business world. And I did really, really well. But it wasn't for me.
I didn't know this about you. So first off, back up real quick. Why would a little girl, what age were you again? When you
I was 7.
You're 7. Okay. You're 7 years old and you get scared. Why did you go to books? I mean, you must have had a love for knowledge or something. And what were you seeking when you were decided to read about sharks? What was it?
Well, we had Jaws records. We would play the music and jump on the couch from couch to couch, trying not to hit the floor. I remember being in school, I did a Jaws puppet show for all my classmates. I don't know. It resonated so deeply with me that I couldn't shake it. And I think going to the books was really all I had. I didn't know where else to go. We didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have, the world's volume of knowledge in our fingertips. We had books. And so I think that was my last chance to try to figure out how to overcome this fear and my curiosity. I just wanted to know more about them. I didn't really know much about them except that they were scary creatures that would eat you. And so the curiosity, I think, took me to the books. And that's where I just, like I said, I just devoured the pages about them and found out so much that I didn't know. How many different sharks there are, how old they are. They're older than trees. How old
are they? You've now have studied this deeply. How old are sharks?
Yeah, so right around 440 million years ago is when we saw the rise of the first jawed vertebrates, and that includes the sharks. And so sharks had that novel innovation of, here I even have a little show and tell for you, of the jaws.
Yeah. What kind of shark is that?
So this is a dusky. This is a dusky shark, one of over 500 species swimming in the ocean today. But the novel innovation was the jaws, and the teeth are modified scales. And this really triggered an arms race in the ocean for animals that could outswim sharks, that would not be able to be eaten by sharks. So having armor, all of these different things evolved because of that. So sharks really were one of the first animals to really set off this diversity, and they're just they're amazing in the different adaptations they have. They really run the gamut.
Are they older than dinosaurs?
Oh, absolutely. So dinosaurs arose around 200 million years ago. And we know dinosaurs no longer are walking the planet. And, that is in itself an interesting story. We think that because of that large asteroid that impacted, the conditions on Earth changed so much, dinosaurs could no longer survive. But who was here? The sharks were here, and they survived that event. In fact, they have survived 5 mass extinction events. So the story of the shark truly is a story of survival.
Wow. Let's go to just the real time, and then we'll get to your journey line story, because you go from a little girl who's scared and it turns from fear to curiosity. But right there, I want to dig into that, because that could really help a lot of people. How do you turn a fear into curiosity? And then you're swimming with them, you research them. In fact, didn't you just get back yesterday from someplace? I mean, tell me what you're doing. Tell our audience what you're doing.
Yeah, well, this last week, I went down to Yucatan of Mexico. I went down there to just debrief and spend a little time with my family. But of course, we had to go spend time with the sharks, because that's what I do. So we ended up going and spending a little bit of time next to some nurse sharks and taken a look at some of them. They're just absolutely amazing. And we actually got to swim with sea turtles, which was really exciting, down in Akamal. And, the story of sea turtles is equally as amazing. There are 7 sea turtle species, and they're endangered. So there are people all over the world working as hard as they can to protect these ancient reptiles. They're air breathers. They lay eggs. They're absolutely incredible.
Do you, I mean, when you're underwater, is it like a thing not to grab onto them, or can you, yeah, you don't want to do that, right?
Yeah, you really don't want to touch wildlife
Yeah.
underwater, and just, give them that respect, and just to be able to share space with them. We were with green sea turtles. That's one particular species. And they get to be pretty big, and they have what are called remoras on their bodies. So these are animals that attach onto them and get kind of a free snack by hanging onto them. Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. And then there are species called the leatherback sea turtles, which get to be as big as a car. They're absolutely amazing.
It's so cool. I mean, nature's so cool. I want to dive into the foundations you have, the organizations you do, how you're bringing kids and not just kids, but people to be aware of how special this is. I remember in Mexico, by the way, that's where the Yucatan's where the asteroid hit, right? Down in
Yes, that is just north of there. Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. And extinguished all the dinosaurs, they think. But and real quick, not to get off, because, our good friend Ken Lavakova, right? Both of us, he tells that story really, really well. But just for people who don't know, why did an asteroid extinguish a whole population? What is it that happened?
Yeah, so some of the latest thinking on this is that this asteroid impacted, and it impacted just north of the Yucatan of Mexico in a place called Chicxulub. And this is so interesting. It impacted in the ocean and then hit into the bedrock and limestone. And that impact was so big and so large that it created a fireball, and it changed the conditions on Earth so fast and so vastly that life on Earth, a lot of it didn't survive. And that includes the dinosaurs. And there's many different ideas, but it's thought that life, including dinosaurs, probably blinked out pretty fast after that impact, a matter of days or weeks. Which before we thought maybe it took a lot longer, but we don't think so anymore. And that's really pretty incredible to think about those animals, huge T-Rex, all of these animals on there blinking out just in the matter of weeks. But again, there was life that survived. And really, that's what's fascinating to me, is to think of what were the adaptations, or where were they living that allowed some of these animals to persist, and then, really rebound and then diversify again. And, because of the extinction of the dinosaurs, it allowed for animals like us to be able to then move in and adapt and flourish. So had the dinosaurs persisted, perhaps human beings wouldn't be here, which, if you think about that, is pretty incredible.
Yeah, every day is a glad to be here day, right? That's how I think about it. And we take for granted just the air we breathe, at least I do, right? And how precious this ecosystem is. And I know that you know it much more. I mean, that's part of your essence, right? And I think, and you're trying to get the whole world aware of how precious this is. I just think, when I was flying jets and I get to see the curvature of the earth, that's when the awe hits you, right? And you go, whoa, that thin veil that we call the atmosphere, is all this protecting us from death and space? And an asteroid. I mean, they make movies about asteroids hitting the planet, but it actually happened,
It actually happened.
And that's crazy. Yeah.
And it can happen again.
Yeah,
it can happen again. And that's really one of the interesting things to contemplate as, we look out onto, going to the moon and going to Mars and trying to expand our ability to survive by going to other planets. This is our one place, this is our one home. But we could have another asteroid impact. It could happen. There's no guarantees for anything. And I think that, you talked about that very thin veil of the atmosphere. It's like the orange peel of our planet. It's so seemingly insignificant, yet it's our life support system. And the ocean is that as well. The ocean acts as, the lungs of our planet. And that's where we get most of our oxygen. It's not the rainforests give us a lot, but the ocean really is giving us 3 out of every 5 breaths that comes from little plants in the ocean.
See, this is okay, so let's go to where you are the expert. In fact, I'm looking at your aquarium behind you and I'm going, that's a little small for Mikki, because how you get a shark in that aquarium, Mikki, right? But talk to me about okay, your passion for sharks, and let's learn about sharks. Let's learn about the ecosystem, and also how you teach kids, right? I think that's what's just amazing. So over to you. You're scared, you become curious, and then what happens?
Yeah. Well, you know, the story of sharks really is amazing because they are such ancient animals. They have, like I said, survived through these mass extinction events. And, you know, despite it all, now we have over 500 different shark species swimming in the ocean today. And what's so incredible about it is when I first started studying sharks, there were about 475, and now there's over 500 because we keep discovering more sharks. Okay. There are so many things about the ocean that we just don't know. And we're learning more every day, which makes it so exciting to be out there studying the ocean today, to know that there are sharks in the bottom of the ocean we've never seen before. And that, you know, young people that are entering my field will be the ones that make those amazing discoveries. You know, but again, sharks are so diverse. We have sharks like whale sharks, which are the largest, you know, fish in the ocean, and the largest sharks swimming today, over 50 feet as adults, and they're totally harmless. You can go swimming with them in the Yucatan, where I just was.
Really? And they're with whale sharks?
With whale sharks, you can swim right next to them because they're completely harmless. They're what we call filter feeders. And so they're just filtering out little plants and animals and fish eggs to create the biggest bodies in the ocean. And you can go from that to one of the smallest sharks that would fit into the palm of your hand. These sharks can glow in the dark. So we have glow in the dark sharks. Nice. Which use light inside of their body to create, it's called bioluminescence. And they use that to help them camouflage their bodies, which is incredible. And some sharks lay eggs, I was talking about earlier, yet some sharks give birth to live young. And the whale sharks, for instance, have upwards of 300 shark pups at one time, all in different stages of development in their bodies, which is incredible. Really? And then we have ones like hammerhead sharks, which are the most recent evolved sharks in the ocean. And hammerhead sharks have an umbilical cord, a placenta, very similar to what we as mammals have. So again, from laying eggs to having a placenta and an umbilical cord, sharks run the whole gamut. There are even sharks that have intrauterine cannibalism. So they'll actually eat each other while they're inside of the womb, which sounds so cruel. But they do this as a way to make sure that the most fit shark is born and will survive.
Wow. So talk about adapting and the fittest, right? Tell me a story first, then we'll get to the different sharks. Give me a scary story, because you know sharks scare people, right? First off, I want to demythify, whatever that word is, the idea of how many people really get hurt by sharks. I have no idea. I hope you do, but I bet you it's not as much as we think, right?
Yeah, it really isn't. So typically, so this is really interesting. So there is an international shark attack file. So there are people that have been keeping track of shark and people interactions for over 400 years. Really? And so you can go back into the record and understand how many shark attacks or incidents there have been, and you can get all of the details to understand, you know, what are the trends, you know, why does this happen? And what we know is there's usually about 5 fatal shark attacks per year globally. So that's the whole wide world. 5 a year global, and yet we freak out. Yes. Oh my God. We freak out. You have more chance of being bitten by a person on the New York subway than you do.
Well, that's New York for sure.
Yeah, that's New York.
But no, really. I mean, that's a real stat. You could get bit by a human being on a subway in New York is a higher risk than a shark. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, that's not even to say silly things like getting killed by a vending machine when people are shaking vending machines to get their soda pop out, you know, things like that. So the statistics just don't really support that sharks are these huge monsters. And what we see really is
on the flip side of it, human beings are taking over 100 million or more sharks per year out of the water for food and for their fins. And so if anybody has anything to fear, it's really the sharks should be afraid of us. And that's just the truth, the absolute truth.
Well, and it's sad. I got goosebumps because how sad that can be, right? A misunderstanding. And then also, the fins. So talk about that. Why do they want, what's the idea of shark fins?
Yeah. So the idea behind shark fins is really kind of an ancient one. And, shark fins in Asian cultures represent wealth, and they represent sort of an I made it kind of prestige, similar to maybe driving a fancy car. It just means it's a status symbol. And so if you can afford a bowl of shark fin soup, it just indicates that you're fairly wealthy. And so with a large emerging middle class in China, the demand for shark fin soup escalated in the 90s and the 2000s to the point of where we are seeing global declines of sharks because of the demand for these products. And so the good news about this, however, is that educational campaigns in China, including Chinese celebrities, have been targeted to try to help younger generations understand that this is not a truly sustainable food product, and actually that it's not cool. And that's, I think, what we have to have happen in order for the demand for these types of luxury meat products to wane away. And I'm scared that, it may be a little too late for some species. The hammerhead sharks I spoke of before are my favorite of the sharks, and they have been hit very hard by shark fin soup demand because they school together. So when you find one, you find many. And they have really big fins. And so they're targeted for this. And so now they are critically endangered species, which is really sad to say. Just on the watch, when I've been working on them, that has happened to them. So I have to have special permits to work on them.
Why is the hammerhead your favorite?
Oh, they're just so weird. Hammerheads have that weird head shape. And, biologists, as funny as it sounds, have been arguing in the scientific literature for hundreds of years as to why there are hammerheads and what does it mean. And so for my whole PhD, that's what I got to work on, is why do hammerheads have the weird head shape? What does it mean? Why is that? And there's many different hammerhead species. So that's the cool part of the story. They have all these different head shapes.
Yeah, let's dive into it a little bit here, because I remember the presentation I saw, and thank you for coming on, because I was so blown away with not only your expertise, but what you're doing with it to help the world. And I want to make sure that we spend some time there. But I remember the diagram of why the hammerhead has two eyes far out, and where's there a no see zone. Go ahead. Yeah. Tell me the story.
Okay, so I have more little props.
I like it. Here we go.
This is a little hammerhead. So this happens to be what we call a bonnet head. So this one is the most advanced of the hammerheads. And then it goes all the way to one that looks like a boomerang, literally. And so the question I was asking is, as these sharks are swimming straight ahead, can they even see, ahead of themselves, since their eyes are kind of pointed out? And so I did the visual field analysis of all kinds of different hammerhead species. And what I found was so surprising. I found that normal sharks, like your regular shark that looks like this, definitely.
That's scary. Is that a great white?
That's a great white.
Okay.
They have the ability to see straight ahead, but the hammerheads do too, which was a surprise. And they're binocular overlaps. That means each eye's visual field is larger in the hammerheads than regular sharks. And it's all because their eyes are actually on the ends of the hammers, and they're canted slightly forward. And just that eye positioning gives them an advantage. And the advantage is depth perception. So having two eyes allows you to judge distances. And that's critically important if you're in the ocean zone and you're trying to put things in your mouth. And one of the weird things that we did discover, however, is that many of the sharks have kind of a big blind area right in front of their eyes where they can't see. And so we started to think about other senses that the sharks use. They have the ability to detect living things underwater with their electrosense. And so we figured out how far away do they use this other sensory system around their head, and found that it basically just mirrors perfectly that blind spot right in front of their head. So, you know, at the end of the day, these guys are just perfectly adapted for their environment. And they're perfect predators. And it makes sense because they've been around for millions and millions of years, and they're honing all of their sensory systems to work in combination, just as you and I do. So it's no big surprise, but it was a pretty cool finding.
That's amazing. Now, when you say that the sensory, is that, I'm thinking radar, right? Is that what it is, or is it not? You know, the idea of sending out something and receiving a hit back?
Yeah, no, that would be sort of what we see in dolphins. So they're echolocators. So they're sending out a signal and it's bouncing back, and it allows them to have kind of a three-dimensional map of what's going on around them. But with the sharks, what they have on their snouts is they have all of these little black dots. And those are jelly-filled canals called the ampullae of Lorenzini. And those—
Wait a minute, say that again.
Sorry, the ampullae of Lorenzini.
Your PhDs, you come up with the craziest terms, but I love it. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So that is the electrosense. And so sharks use those jelly-filled canals to literally sense living things. So other fish, other crabs, people, whatever it is that's in the water, they all give off. And so you can't escape. I mean, no matter if it's dark, if you're under the sand, sharks will be able to detect you. And that's just, again, a really amazing sense that the sharks have. And it's shared by platypus. But that's about it. We don't have it. Other animals don't have it. It's a very unique, special sense. And the last thing to add about that's really cool, is we think that sharks are using the electrosense to help them navigate the Earth's magnetic fields. So they might know where they are by using that electrosense. That's one of the last big questions in shark biology that shark biologists are trying to answer right now. Pretty cool.
So that's how they could migrate? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so they can use the Earth's magnetic lines, which would help them orient so that they know where they're going. And we see this. We see hammerheads, for instance, which again school together in hundreds of individuals. They will move.
Yeah, those pictures, by the way, real quick. That's you see the pictures and from a diver who's down below, and all these hammerheads are circling above them. That's intimidating. Have you been in that situation?
Yes, and it is amazing. And again, one of the things that I will tell you about diving with sharks for decades is that you would think that you would be terrified. You would think that you would want to get the heck out of the water. You would think all of these things, but surprisingly, when you're in the moment, when you see these animals underwater, I think a sense of awe overcomes you, and a sense of appreciation for wildlife. And I think that's what most people take away. And I spend a lot of time taking young students diving with me to experience sharks and to collect data and understand what it is to be a scientist. But at the end of the day, they're kids and they're connecting with nature. And if you can connect kids to nature, that's a win. And when they get out of the water after spending time with a shark, they come out of the water and they're like, I wasn't scared. I can't believe it. They'll get on an airplane and tell every stewardess what they just did. And they're the ambassadors of tomorrow. And I couldn't be more proud of all those kids that do that and want to help nature and want to experience it.
Well, talk about your associate or your organization and what you're doing with kids.
So in 2014, I started Ocean First Institute, which is a nonprofit organization. And our mission is ocean conservation through research and education. So I am a huge fan of research. I love doing research. It's critically important to help us move conservation forward. But I have a really big heart for outreach and for really trying to tell the story of what I do and why it matters and why the earth and nature and wildlife is worth fighting for. And when you connect with someone who then understands the marvel and the wonder of what we get to do every day, it's intoxicating. It's really my best work, I guess, is what I could say.
And you said a stat that every 5 breaths, the oxygen comes from the ocean. I never heard that before. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Does it come from, tell me, what is it? How's it?
Yeah, so it's just plankton. So small plants in the ocean give off oxygen, and that oxygen that is coming from the ocean is greater than the rainforests. And so 3 out of every 5 breaths you take comes from the ocean. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I have faced in my career, is that when we go into elementary school, when we go to middle school and high school, we don't learn about the ocean. Right. No one teaches us. No one knows anything about it. And it's just like this big mystery. And that, unfortunately, is why we don't understand, why we don't value, why we don't appreciate the ocean. And so my whole goal is to change that and to get students to engage and to understand and to, again, see the wonder of the animals. You know, we all connect with animals at some level, I feel like, and to make those connections, to then go to those deeper issues like climate, ocean acidification, some of the real things that are happening on our watch that are very big concerns. You know, those are the things that we bring to the table later. But we really, you know, feel like getting people excited, connected, empowered, educated, and then to act is really the key.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing it. By the way, my dog Ruby just came down and laid down next to my feet. She's that rescue, you know, that we have, and and she's so sweet. And like you said, we do connect animals. At least, you know, I do. I know most people do, especially youth, right? And and yet it seems like the ocean is not as inviting because it's not a normal place for most of us. You know, I'm a scuba diver. I can't wait to go diving with you. By the way, I want you to take me to some big sharks. But talk to me about, first off, the organization. You're based in Boulder, Colorado, right? And this just cracks me up. Here's an ocean institute based in the mountains. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you know, it's a bit odd, and we get a lot of you know, questions about why would you do this in the mountains of Boulder, and you know, why exist there. And you know, I think it is because we are here that it puts us front and center in that conversation of why does the ocean matter. You know, if you're not on the coast, who cares? Well, we care, and we know why we care, and we know why we should care. And, you know, back to your question about young people and nature and connecting to the ocean, which is a little scary. I think one of the things that I love most about what I get to do is, you know, we have a swim school where we teach young kids how to swim. And then we have our diving organization where we take young kids as young as, you know, 8 to be junior divers. So they start to dive and then they become junior open water divers. Then we take them on trips and they become divers, and they start to understand nature and they start doing science with us. And then, you know, they end up going on expeditions where they collect data with us. So it's a whole series where, you know, everyone is comfortable, everyone gets to understand and to experience things at their own level. And we do all of our online and in-person classes. And so again, you know, we're teaching things about narwhals, dolphins, sharks, sea turtles, all the way to, you know, climate change, sea level rise, walruses, deep sea fish, plastic pollution. You know, it's all here. And it's all related. And whether you're in Colorado or whether you're in California or Bali, it all impacts us. And again, it's that 3 out of every 4 breaths. It's, you know, the oceans filling with plastics versus, you know, we're putting in and taking out. You know, all of those things are critically important for the health of the ocean, which ultimately is the health of our planet.
Yeah, I think, you know, you hit a key point. Is it's unfortunately natural to see yourself as different than something, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea that the ocean is the ocean and we are mammals and we're on land, whatever, right? And it's, to me, that's a sense of ignorance, right? And ignorance in a way that misunderstanding is a better word, right? It's a misunderstanding that how interconnected everything is. What are the major threats? You've mentioned a couple of them: the microplastics, the rising of the sea level. I mean, I read about this stuff all the time, but you're intimately involved. Yeah. What are the most imminent threats that we need to address as a?
I think the most imminent threat is that people are tuned out, and I think people are overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. I think that's the biggest threat, because the solutions are there. We know what to do. We know exactly what we need to do. We just need to act. And until I think we have a path that is easy and supported by our governments and supported by our local communities, it's going to be a little bit harder for people to sort of overcome that paralysis that sometimes takes on. I think that's why I love working with young people so much, because they don't know the word no, and they don't know any better or any different, and they just do it. And so for me, the threats that we do face, are all, we can overcome every single one. We know what to do. We just need to get everyone collectively working together towards these solutions. And I think, one of the ways to do that is to get people to care about the world, to care about the animals that are in it, to care about each other. And, it's funny you say it's hard for us to see ourselves sometimes. If you study whales, and we teach a lot of classes about whales, whales have an amazing story. They used to live on land, and they are one of the mammals that reinvaded the aquatic realm. And if you look at their evolutionary story, it's incredibly fast that they went back into the water. And so now we see animals that used to live on land now living back in the water. And they're just like us. They breathe air, they have milk, they have hair, they have all the same things, but they went back into the water. And so there's a lot of things that we share with ocean creatures. And if you get the opportunity to look into the eyes of animals when you're in the water, it's transformative, and it makes you feel like you're connected and that you're all in this together. And it's a beautiful thing.
Give me a transformative experience that you've had in the water. Pick any of them. I know you've had a ton.
Oh, I would say I had one really amazing one. Just a couple of years ago, I went to the island nation of Palau, nice. Which is sort of by Guam. It's it takes a long time to get there, but it's this beautiful island, and they've pledged to take care of their marine wildlife and to protect it. And one day I was there with other friends scuba diving, and it was sunset time. So the water had that kind of dappling golden light coming through, and sort of out of the distance came an entire squadron of big manta rays. Really? And they came gliding through that magical light. And there were 7 of them. And they came in and they were so graceful, and they are so smart, and they interact with you. And I had one that came in up to me and just started to do these flips.
Really?
Feeding, but it was doing these incredible flips. And I had a friend who videotaped it, and it was just one of those moments where you can't believe what you're seing. And the animal is looking at you, and you're looking at it, and you're checking each other out, and you're having an experience. And all of us at the end of that dive came up, and the sun was setting, and we couldn't believe it. We're just cheering and hooting and hollering, and those are moments that you'll never forget. You keep them inside of you. They are part of you forever. You never lose those moments because they become you. And those friends that you're with, you'll never forget those moments that you share, because it's like being an explorer in the world's last great wilderness. When you enter the ocean, you never know what you're going to see. That's what's so amazing.
Wow. I'm picturing the experience. I didn't know you called them a squadron, by the way. That's
yes,
cool.
You would love that.
Is that any fish, or because I've heard
no, that's just particular to mantas. Yes.
Really? You call them squadrons? Oh, that's cool. I can imagine. And 7, not 6, but 7 coming at you. But just to have that interaction. Can animals, do you believe, sharks, animals, manta rays, ones in the water, Can they sense fear? Do you think they can sense if you're comfortable with there or not?
I'm not sure. I think probably yes. I'm not sure. I do know this much. I do know that in experiences that I've had underwater, I have had animals come up to me and look me in the eye and have, an experience. I've had other animals that go away, want nothing to do with you. So in some ways, it almost as if there is some type of personality. I wouldn't say personality, I wouldn't use that word, but sort of something behind the eyes that is definitely there. And it's interesting because hammerheads, manta rays, all are very intelligent. There's a friend of mine who studies shark brains, and she has found evidence through looking at brain structures that some of them are much smarter than others. And many of those are the more recently evolved ones. And it's fascinating to think about what does that intelligence, that cognitive ability serve them. And these are animals that are highly social. They're in big groups, in big numbers, like the manta rays, the hammerheads. So that additional layer of cognitive ability seems to serve them well in these social structures. Hammerheads have social hierarchies. They have dominant females, some subordinate females. They have nonverbal communication. So it's a world that we know very little about.
Wow. Do they behave in a group like this? Is there a leader of some sort? You said there's a dominant one, but how's that work?
Yeah, so there's definitely a dominance hierarchy there. And so that dominant female might be the one that leads them, might be the one that is traveling, helping them in guiding them to where they're going next, to a successful feeding ground, to mating grounds. Many of these species will sexually segregate. So males and females don't hang out until it's mating time. And then somehow miraculously they find each other underwater. And again, what are the mechanisms? We think maybe pheromones, which is like perfume. But these are huge distances that these animals are able to find each other underwater. And again, another big mystery we're still trying to understand.
Wow. What, give me another story. I love that story of awe with that manta ray. Give me a scary one now, because I just, we're attracted to that kind of stuff.
I would say this is the same trip, actually, same trip. There are sharks called gray reef sharks.
Oh yeah.
They're beautiful. They're kind of on the smaller side, but they again spend they're in big numbers, big groups. And so I was on a dive where the current was ripping very, very fast. And what you do in a situation like that is you'll actually clip into the reef with a rope, and you're kind of flying like a kite so that you don't fly away. And we were in a group of gray reef sharks that numbered in, maybe almost 100. So a really big group of them. And they're very skittery, meaning that they're kind of unpredictable, which is not something that's really fun when you've got a lot of them all around you. Yep. And so the school would kind of come out of the murk, and they would be very visible, and then they would kind of move back and they would come in. And I remember one of them, I was measuring them with lasers underwater, which is something that I do. And they did not like the lasers. Something about them got them freaked out. So I would shine my lights and they would physically react and get jumpy. And I remember one of them got so jumpy, he started coming towards me, and I thought, oh no, this is it. This is it. He's
You're going to be the sixth shark attack of the year.
That's right. And it would have been my fault, but hey, yeah. So, some of them are a little skittery, a little bit unpredictable. And, the great whites are another one. I've spent a lot of time with white sharks underwater, but in cages. Because if there is one shark that could take you out, this is it. This is we call them an ambush predator. So these animals hunt from below with the element of surprise. And I can tell you, after spending hours and hours in the water with them, you wouldn't see them coming, because they are counter shaded. That's the dark on the top and the white on the bottom. They are adapted perfectly to blend into their environment. You wouldn't see them coming. And one big bite, it would be pretty much all it would take. So that makes them an animal you want to swim with a cage for sure, just for your own safety and so that nothing happens to you or to them.
Right. No, I think, don't you have a trip coming up you were talking about?
Yes.
Where we can go into cages with the great whites? Or
yes, that's October of 23. So it's quite a ways away.
Yeah.
So you can get ready and get excited and come with me. But it's out in Isla Guadalupe, which is off the Baja coast of California, or Mexico. And it's about an 18-hour boat ride. On a luxury boat, and you go out and you spend about 5-6 days cage diving with white sharks in 150-foot visibility. It's absolutely crystal clear water, and they come out of these, out of the blue. You're just looking into the distance, and suddenly you'll see them appear. They'll swim right by you, and it's off the charts. It's absolutely amazing.
How deep are you?
You can do a surface cage, which is about 8 feet deep. And then you can go down to a deeper cage, which puts you at about 35 feet. And it's almost like a little elevator. You can jump on and they go up and down.
Yeah, wow.
And you don't have to be a scuba diver. You can do what's called a hookah, where you just breathe in.
They call it a hookah?
It's a hookah, like a hookah.
I've heard of hookahs for smoking.
Oh, I know you know what a hookah is.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I'm a diver. I'll have to get recertified though, or just update. But nice, cool. The something I wanted to talk about is a call sign. So Sugar, on my team has decided that you might be Jaws. I mean, he's thinking. And that's what I wanted to see, your reaction.
I love it. Oh, well, it's pretty much perfect. I mean, it shapes my whole life. So, I mean, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Well, it's better than minnow. Remember we were talking about minnow? There's no way.
I know.
You can't be minnow. I mean,
minnow won't do.
I hope people who listen to this share this with their young daughters, young boys. It doesn't really matter, but to see how you've overcome a fear, which is natural to all of us. In fact, I'm still, sort of scared of sharks. I can't wait for you to help me overcome that. But the idea that you did that, you overcame a fear, and then it became a passion and a love. You made your whole life about it. And you took on education, PhD. You're saving not just the sharks, you're helping educate and save the world. If you were to think back to your young self again, what would you share? You probably do this. What do you share with young kids on how to follow your dream, how to make a life out of a passion?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think being a kid, you don't seem to know any better on your limits. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about being a kid, is that you don't know that you might not be able to do something, and you just kind of do it out of sheer will. And I think that is sort of instilled in all of us as young kids. And I think as we become adults, we lose that. They even call it just being a scientist, because you're naturally curious. That's what scientists are. They just ask questions and they want to know. And I think that's what is inside of all of us. And I think it's important to keep that and to follow your passion, whatever that is. And there will be people that will always tell you you can't or you shouldn't, and don't listen. That's what I would say, because I had a lot of people that told me, yeah, that's a little crazy, or that's a little silly, or I don't know about that, but it felt right to me. And the older I get and the more that I see the risks in the natural world around us, the more I know it's important. It really is vital that people care about our planet and the other inhabitants of our planet that have a right to survive just like we do. And they don't have a voice in many cases. And having people that go out there to be that voice for them, it's a really great calling. It's a really great thing.
What are some, let's get back to some of the issues. We said it's really misunderstanding, people needing to take action, but let's say someone's listening to this and says, I do want to take action. Where can you direct them? Or at least, I guess what I'm thinking about, the high level stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is it plastics in water? What do we do about that? Is it the rising temperature, climate change, and the rising level? I mean, what are some of the hot items that you can steer people to?
Yeah, it's all of those things you just said. And this is a really hard one. One of the biggest things that we can do to help the planet is to think about our food, to think about what we eat.
Yep.
And this is a very personal question, and it's something that people get a little upset about, to be honest. But thinking about what you eat, why you eat it, when you eat it, and where it comes from is really important. If we all took a little more time to think about those important parts of our diet and how environmentally impactful some of that is, it's an important thing to consider. So that's number one. Number two, you talked about plastic consumption. So here in Colorado, I have a grant where I'm funded in 6 counties to look at plastic pollution in our streams and rivers, in the water and in the sediments. And so I take students from high schools in all of 6 counties. And unfortunately, we're finding microplastics and microfibers in all of our samples. And what that equates to is just that plastic is falling from the sky because of all of the plastics that we have in all of our things. And fibers, microfibers, come from our clothes. When we wash our clothes, the water goes out of the drain from our laundry, and it contains a lot of the fibers. So when you dry your clothes and you pull out your lint filter, it's full of lint, but when you wash them, it just goes out. And so we're losing a lot of synthetics in our laundry, which is something to consider. And there are things you can buy to help you with that. You can hand wash your clothes. Some people do. You can also use what's called a guppy bag, where you can put some of your clothes in bags to try to contain those fibers. But these are commercially available things that will help us solve these problems. Like I was saying before, all of these problems are solvable. We just need industry and consumer demand to go hand in hand. And that, to me, is the clincher. It's what you buy with your wallet that really sets the directive. It's the same thing with shark fin soup that we talked about earlier. If people stop buying it, they're not going to go out and catch these animals because it takes a lot of money to catch them. But if you make a lot more money selling their parts, then you're going to keep doing it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You vote with your wallet, right? How you live really determines what happens out there. And I love the idea of green economy, meaning green is good, not just good for the environment, but if done right, it's good for business, right? That's I'm always great. In the win-win, you know, identifying things that help the environment, but also make a difference for people. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I want to get into some depth, just a couple of depth questions here. Takeaways in your life, whether they're sayings, whether they're experiences, readings, something that you've learned that you lived your life by. Yeah. What are a couple?
I would say probably the biggest one that I ever had in my life just came to me. I lost my dad, and I was his caregiver when he became ill. And after he passed away, I had an opportunity to sort of reframe my life. I had a chance to just rethink it. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, you know, there is no guarantee there. You're not owed anything. And, you know, when it comes to your life, you should do what matters to you and what brings you joy and happiness, because at the end of the day, that really is what you're going to give back to the world and to the people around you. And if you can be your best you, that's the best thing you can do. So for me, that was a big transformative moment where I had the courage to say, I'm going to do something a little bit different, off script. And it has served me since that day to be the real me and to be the me that I always wanted to be, but didn't really know how to be. I didn't know how to get there, but I found my way.
Where was this transformation?
So this was in Florida in 1995. So I was 27, 28 years old. Again, I went into the business world and I was doing great, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't the work that I really wanted to do. And I didn't know how to get to where I wanted to be. until I sat down and said to myself, this is your chance to it's a reboot. It's a redo. So do it.
Well, I like to say reinvent yourself. You know,
Totally.
I've done it 3 times in my life. And I agree with you that you don't need to know the path completely. It's like a little kid. There's a blessing to just saying, hey, I'll do that someday, you know? But it does help to have a little bit of a path. Once you set your goal, you know, and I've found that education's always a good way to bridge a gap. You know, for me specifically, out of the Navy, so I flew, you know, I want to be a pilot. I became a pilot, right? And that was great. And then at some point, I'm like, you know, I do want to transition, run and reinvent myself. I don't want to be a pilot my whole life. I want to go to, you know, maybe business life, just explore things. And the path was school for me. I went to Stanford, right? But so help us out. What was the path? You said, okay, well, actually, what was the aha at 25, 27?
So the aha was I wanted to spend time underwater with sharks. And so I thought becoming a scuba instructor was going to do it. I thought that was going to be enough for me at the moment. And so I ended up moving down to the Florida Keys and spent some time, you know, becoming an instructor, teaching people, helping them overcome their fear of sharks and seeing the joy of them learning, you know, to dive and to be an explorer in that wilderness. And then I had another transformational moment happen to me where I was offered a job to work for National Geographic as a production assistant with Dr. Sylvia Earle. And it blew my mind. So I got to spend a whole week with her underwater in an underwater habitat in the Florida Keys, breakfast, lunch, dinner with her, and got to know her, got to understand what makes her tick and and just seeing a passionate person larger than life right in front of my eyes. And I got to ask her, I told her what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. And she said, this is what you should do. And this is how you can get there. And that was school. And that's exactly what I did. I went back to school too. And I never stopped. I ended up, you know, getting an undergrad. I got my master's, I got a PhD, I did a postdoc, and then started my own nonprofit organization. But had I not met her, had she not said, hey, you know, you can do this to save the animals you love. This is what you should do. I don't know if I would have. She helped me find a way that I didn't know.
You know, so a couple of quick takeaways on that is one, when you go to reinvent yourself, why not make it fun? I mean, look at scuba instructor in the Keys. Okay, I think I'm learning from you. You know, let's make this fun and enjoy it too.
Yeah,
I believe that. You know, I'm up here in Sun Valley and never planned to be in Sun Valley, but I didn't want to be a ski bum when I was young because I had goals and flying and stuff. But now I like when I was actually late 30s, early 40s. I said, hey, I think I can be a ski bum. Why not? You know, move to Sun Valley and ski. So move to Florida and then you meet people, right? I found that when you're doing what you love, that's when you tend to meet people who also can mentor and give you that advice that you needed, you know, and finding that mentor, finding somebody, which by the way, I didn't even look like you were necessarily searching. It just happened, right? The seed ripened and you were right there. So what do you think that was? Why do you think that she appeared when she did and was able to help you?
Yeah, you know, I think it was just a combination. Like just before that, I was with treasure hunters having a great time.
Oh, see, look at you.
In the Pirates of the Caribbean. And, you know, I mean, it was the time of my life. I mean, I was just living day to day, living the dream. I mean, it was absolutely extraordinary. And I think when you have that openness and you're having a great time and you're smiling and you're in love with the world, you walk into a room and people respond to that. And that's how I got that job. And that's how I met her. And that's how she was like, Mikki, you can do great things. You just got to go for it. And I thought, wow, if she can do it, I can do it too. And I think I was ready, you know, but I wasn't ready before, but I was ready then. And, now what's amazing to me is people are looking up to me and asking me what to do. And I am blown away by that. But again, the same story is find your superpower, find what makes you happy, and you go after it with tenacity, and you don't ever let go, and don't ever let anybody tell you can't. And just keep going. And it's wonderful.
Okay, Jaws, what is your superpower? Give me a couple of yours. I can sense it, but what do you think it is?
I don't know. I guess the thing I think is a superpower for me is I get people excited. And I feel like I hope that I get people excited to care about the world. And if I can do that, then I feel like my job's done. I'm out.
Well, and you've done that at a big level. I've got my stats here from my good friend Sugar doing the research. It says the Institute has reached thousands of students in the local area, but 170,000 students in 35 countries and 46 US states.
Yeah.
That's an amazing stat.
Yeah, we've traveled millions and millions of miles. We do lots of virtual webinars with kids. We beam into Cambodia or Vietnam or Hong Kong or Ireland or Dublin. We go to all these different places to reach kids who are hungry, that have amazing supportive teachers, to talk about why sharks matter and why they should care and what they can do to be part of the solution. And my job's easy because sharks are cool. They're like dinosaurs. And, so when I get to jump around and talk about them to kids, they lose their minds and they get so excited. And, sometimes I'll have a whole class that sends me thank you notes, and it just absolutely breaks my heart into a million pieces of joy because, they took the time to thank me. But it shows that teachers can light the way, and teachers can make all the difference in the life of a student to share something with them that could be a trajectory changer. And so for those reasons, we love teachers and we love supporting teachers and giving them what they need.
Wow. I love, why sharks matter and the impact that you made and are continuing to make. Quick question back on sharks, because I want to get over this fear again, but only 5 shark attacks a year. Okay. So first off, if you're in the water and you're in the water with sharks all the time, what should you do so you don't become the 6th person?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I could say this, probably don't even worry about it because your chances are so slim of ever having anything happen. The second thing I would tell you is, sharks' eyes, which I've studied, I was telling you about shark eyes, their eyes are tuned to low light conditions. And so you may have heard people say, don't swim during dusk and dawn. Don't do that because that's when sharks are hunting, because they have a visual advantage. Also, don't swim alone if you can help it. And if you see bait in the water, which is what sharks love, get out or go away. Don't make yourself part of that interaction where sharks are chasing food, they're chasing bait. That's their food. That's what they do. And if you happen to get in the way, you might have an encounter. But that's really it. The chances of you having any interaction are very slim. Just use your common sense. Don't go in murky waters. If you see a lot of bait fish around, move out of there because that's what the sharks are doing. And if it's murky, they're not going to know the difference when they're swimming fast after a fish. That's really what happens is, we get shark bites, people in the water in Florida, just because the sharks are going after fish and they bump into people.
Yep. It's funny. I went on a shark feed once in Australia on the reef, and
of course you did.
Yeah. And I'm reinventing myself again. Let's see, what was this? It was after Stanford, and I wanted to go on a trip, so I took a trip around the world, and I'm in Australia. I didn't have my dive card, but I talked the guy into it because I said, look, I'm really a diver. I just don't have my card. And he goes, well, you know what? He says, I'll know very quickly if you are or not. And so I'm getting prepared, getting the mask ready and the scuba gear and all that. And I put on my wetsuit, and finally the guy looks at me, he goes, after you let me struggle for a little bit, he goes, you're putting it on inside out. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's a good start, but anyhow, he let me dive, and we figured it out. But then we go down, and this is one of those things where we anchored and we had a reef, so we didn't have to go very far, but went down with like, I think 6 people. So we went down before the shark showed up, right? And we went down in a group and hung our arms together, right? And we're like 20 feet down below. It wasn't very far. And then they chum the water, right? So they do exactly what you said don't do, if you want to be there. And so they got the water chummed, and these sharks start coming, and we're just down below and just watching, right? And then the bigger sharks start coming, and they had this frozen piece of fish, right? It was frozen, so they couldn't eat it real quick, and they're hitting it. And as they hit it, the water, sound travels in the water, and you could see those teeth, like you said, serrate, where they'd hit it and they just start shaking, and you can hear the ripping of the flesh. I mean, it's in the water, right? And I'm sitting here going, whoa, this is so cool. But then I'm thinking, how the hell are we going to get back up to the boat? Because the sharks are in between where we are, right? And then this one shark hits it, and this big hunk of fish starts floating down towards us. And just like you said, it's going after it. And it just, right in front of my face, bam, to the piece, knocked my mask off, but wasn't going after me, right? And bottom line is, we just swam up. I swam up fast. I just said, get the hell out of here. But it was a great experience. Honestly, I loved it, right? Yeah. And I know that you do much more controlled and much better experiences like that. But I'm looking forward to going dive in with you and learning. And more importantly, getting this message out to the world about, what Ocean First Institute and how we can help the world. So how do people connect with the Ocean First Institute and yourself?
So you can go to our website, which is oceanfirstinstitute.org. Again, we're a nonprofit organization, so you can check out our website, and that tells you all of the different things that we do, all the different programs. We have a lot of free programs we run. You can get in touch with us for that. We run expeditions. So if you want to go on an expedition with me someday, you can do that too. And wow. You can also
wait a minute. I thought I was special. You mean anybody can go? Oh, now we
Come on, Gucci. Come on now.
Well, I hope people do connect. Keep going. What else? Going with you on an exhibition could be amazing. Go ahead.
It would be fun. So we run a lot of those. And then also we just started, this is so exciting. We just started a marine lab in Florida, in the Florida Keys. So I'm returning back to the Florida Keys, which I left to go back to school. And so we've got our shark research lab there, which is so exciting. Wow. We also have educational programs there. So if a student wanted to come down there and intern with us or work with us, you just let us know. We have a lot of great opportunities starting up down there. And we just found out that we're in partnership with another organization down there to have access to the research vessel Odyssey, which has submarines on it. And we're going to be able to go down and do our deep sea shark research, which is making me lose my mind, because hopefully we'll be discovering new species, looking at habitats we've not seen before, and really highlighting the true importance of these ecosystems, which are very challenging to study and to work in. But we want to bring that to kids. We want to bring that through live streaming, have kids move the submarines and control the ROVs. So we are beyond thrilled at some of the opportunities on our horizon to engage students and to get them to be the marine biologists of today and tomorrow, so that they can help us do the important work we do. And we're also on Instagram. You can find us, and we're also on Facebook for the older people. You can check us out.
Oh, Mikki, I had no idea that you're doing that. I can't wait till you do the submarine and maybe find a species that's never been found before. Like you said earlier in the podcast, there's sharks living so deep that we've never seen them, right?
That's exactly true. Yeah, there's just so much we don't know. I used to say we only explored about 2 to 3% of the ocean. Now we're up. We're doing better. We're about 10% now, but we still know more about Mars than we do our own deep ocean. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to do it. And I hope a lot of people will join me because it is exciting.
Wow. Well, you're inspiring so many people. You inspire me. And what I really like is that you're inspiring the youth of the world to make a difference. So I'm going to end with a glad to be here. And then I want to hear you're glad to be here. Thank you for making a difference in people's lives, especially the youth. And thank you for opening up a world that I know very little about, you know, the ocean, and changing a mindset of a predator, a shark, which, yeah, that's their nature, who they are, but how we can interact with them and make a difference. So you're doing it awesome and you're having fun. I think the other thing I'm taking away is, hey, I don't care what age you are, go find your passion.
Totally.
Don't be held back. You know, if you're in your mid-20s like you were, I mean, enjoy life, make it fun, and who knows what's going to happen. So thank you. Glad to be here. Over to you.
All right. Well, I would say, Gucci, you are a chameleon. Like you said, you've reinvented yourself so many times, and that inspires me because life is long and exciting, and there are so many twists and turns to it, and so many opportunities that you can turn into incredible, careers, incredible opportunities. And I think one of the things that is so wonderful about you is that you share that with so many people, and you are the true inspirer. You are amazing. Just to hear you speak, it's beyond there. It's beyond words. Your story, what you do, and the inspiration you bring to people it's just legendary. So Gucci, thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Thanks, Mikki. Thanks, Dr. Jaws. You're awesome. Let's keep inspiring the next generation. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Bye.
Bye.